Lake Amistad is one of those places, I mean, I feel like it's a great place to take your family because you can get a lot of bites on it. We used to take houseboat trips over there. We've camped over there from time to time. I mean, it's one of those lakes that really is a destination, one of Texas' true jewels. There's one. Right now, it's just cast after cast. Just so many of them right there in that one spot. .5XD, and it's going on right now. You know, some of the things to know about Amistad is you don't ever have to go to the Mexican side if you don't want to. But if you're going to go to the Mexican side, get a Mexican fishing license. The Texas side, I've fished only on the Texas side many, many times. Sometimes I go to the Mexican side. They're both good. They both have big fish. They both have a lot of fish. The grass is really good in both. And you know, it's a place that you want to watch your depth finder because there's some shallow places. All the shallow places I saw had bushes on them, and so you could see them a long way ahead of time. The water's falling right now. For some reason, they're pulling water out of that lake, going down the Rio Grande, heading down to Lake Falcon. I don't know if it's going to continue falling, but one thing I do know, it's a place you need to go. There's one. Boy, that fish hit it hard. That's a nice one. Get in here. Yeah, that's a pretty fish right there. I tell you what, you get the opportunity, come to one of my very favorite lakes in Texas, Lake Amistad. You can catch a pile of bass. It's on the rise right now. Thanks for joining us.
And now, the Cabela's Tackle Box with Clark Wendlandt.
Hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about my tackle setup, Lake Amistad, down on the Texas-Mexico border near Del Rio, Texas. And you know, I didn't have any idea what I was getting myself into down there. I didn't know what kind of patterns it was going to be. I knew there was grass, I knew there was bushes that were in the water, and then I knew the water was clear. So, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm going to rig swim baits, I'm going to rig jerk baits, I'm going to rig crank baits. I may end up shallow, so swim jig or another, you know, a shallower swim bait. I may be flipping some, so I had all that stuff rigged up. The way we ended up catching them though was on deep diving crankbaits, also on square bill crankbaits, but the deep diving crankbaits were the best. And the reason is because we had to have a bait that would get all the way down to that grass. You know, we're reeling, you know, I know how deep each one of these crankbaits runs depending on line size, depending on how high I hold my rod, and depending on how fast I reel. But basically, the baits we used needed to get down 10, 12 feet real easily, and that's what we did. The main bait we threw was a Strike King 6XD. The 6XD is it's my favorite deep diving crankbait. And the only reason I'll change to a different one is if I want to get deeper, I go to an 8XD or a 10XD. If I want to come shallower, I go to a 5XD or maybe a 3XD. It's a great series of crankbaits, some that I've got a bunch of in my boat, and I personally think it's about as good a bait as you can throw. As far as the bait went, so we picked the bait. As far as the color goes, to me it didn't really matter. I mean, I started off with natural shad in the 6XD. I ended up with this. I only had one of those, so I started throwing sexy shad. I mean, I know that there's tilapia in that one. I know there's a lot of brim. I know there's shad. So anything in that kind of spectrum to me works really well. As far as rod and reel goes, I am throwing a Tournament ZX composite cranker. This rod right here is 7 foot 5 inches. It basically, it's stiff enough that when I jerk it, I could jerk that grass off, and then it bends enough to where you're not going to jerk it away from one. It felt like a perfect rod for that situation. As far as my reel goes, I'm throwing 6.3 to 1 Cabela's Arachnid. Smooth reel. On deep diving crankbaits, you want to be able to throw a long way. That's huge. I wanted to be able to throw it a long way, and so I was able to. And as far as my line goes, I really like throwing fluorocarbon when I'm cranking more than any other line. To me, it lets the bait get to its maximum depth. I was throwing Super Sniper Sunline and 12-pound test. I mean, to me, I crank more often with 12 than I do any other pound test. I might use 14. I could go up as high as 16 or 20. I could come down as far as 10 or 8, but 12 is what I'll throw the most often. I like having this, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Sniper is a pretty supple line. I think it casts really well, and obviously it's strong and abrasion resistant. Those are keys in fluorocarbon line. You know, we had a great day at Lake Amistad. It's one of those things that, you know, it's one of those places, to me, you just got to get down there, put your boat in the water, go fishing, and you're going to have a great day.